Love watching when my dogs become beavers. Go get your stick. Go get it. Get her. Go on. There's no stick. I'm smarter. Okay. Oh, well, forgive me. I gotta give him a little fun here. Ready? Go get it. Well, one's going. Well, you want the second stick. You want to... That was to fake out your sister. You should have gone for it. Here, go get that one. Come on, guys, let's go. Let's go. And away they go. Well, they can help me give you this impromptu lesson on how you figure out what a good shelter location might be should you need to spend the night in the woods. That's the key here. Should you need to spend the night in the woods? It's so easy for me to write this off to, well, it depends. The variables are so many. Now, I could play it out to exactly what my situation is right now and say, well, I'm a lone man walking his dogs off on a random bush area, but it's a private trail. It's just mine, basically. Know where I'm going, know how to get back. And to start this hike off, I do what I always do. I sent a quick text off to my wife saying, hill hike. She knows what that means. She knows where I'm going, so that she gets home and I'm not back and the dogs aren't back. She'll either come looking for me or we'll get some help.
I think for the most part, shelters are a little too overthought when it comes to a survival situation. If I had it my way, I'd never build a shelter. I'd find great places to be and to make it through the night. When you have to build a shelter, you have to spend a lot of energy. You lose a lot of calories. And most of the time, that shelter's only for one night.
Well, I wanted to bring you into my world, my mind, if you will, of the kinds of things that I think about, the process that I go through when I'm trying to decide where to actually build a shelter. The variables matter so much. But then again, there are also some basic aspects to the kind of place where you're going to set up a shelter. If you need to set up a shelter, what kind of shelter you're going to set up, that I can teach you right now. That'll work in a general sense no matter where you are. But what I'm going to do is make a series of these for you. So this time I'm in Southern Oregon and I'm going up a hillside here. It's madrone bush, it's oaks, it's pines, manzanita bush. I know my trail. I will not talk too specifically to my scenario as it is right now. I'm going to try and stay a little bit generic. And yes, this is a Survivorman sweatshirt I'm wearing, which on the back says, you sweat, you die. So let's get this party started. In this situation, it's almost 4 p.m. I know that the sun will set in less than 90 minutes. I'm not far from my home. I'm on a trail. My partner knows where I'm going, knows I should be back. So hopefully the worst case scenario would be I have a minor heart attack, or I snap my ankle, or I get attacked by a wild animal, something like that, or one of my dogs does, and I find myself stuck here. I don't want to play off this scenario too much because I'd rather have it be a little more generic to all the kinds of scenarios. Maybe you're here in a full backpack. Maybe it's a week-long hiking trip. Maybe it's a day of hunting. You have dogs, you don't have dogs. You have water, you don't have water. I'll touch on all of that. So I'm just randomly stopping here at a spot on the trail. Let's make an assumption that at this moment, well, it wasn't very far from here, that I did come nose to nose with a cougar as well. My dogs and I just over there came face to face with a bull elk. Elk might have attacked one of my dogs, might have hurt it badly. Oh my. Guys, come here. Rogue, come here. Come on. He's standing his ground, so. That is a beauty. Wow. But think about your own situations. You go hunting, you go off on a fishing trek and you want to go through the bush to get to that particular swamp or that pond or that lake. You're with your partner and you're doing a nice bunch of hiking in the Marble Mountains in California or the Appalachian Trail or up in Canada in the Rocky Mountains. So what are we looking at here? What comes into play? Well, absolutely the weather. That's a big one. But do I know what the weather's going to be? Do I know what the weather will be for the next 12 hours? Or did I not check at all? So it's a good thing to check. Is rain coming in this evening? Or is it a matter of, nope, just a little bit of cloud? Will cloud cover come in and make it warmer? And if you don't know what the weather's going to be like, then you're at a great disadvantage. So understanding whether or not you're going to be in frost that night, or whether you're going to be poured on or snowed on, or it's going to be warm, that's something you need to know, because that will help you determine where your shelter location needs to be. Let me go with the first scenario right off the bat. Again, this is just coming to my mind as I stand here. I'm gonna kind of stop talking, look around, and think about, okay, what do I think about in a place like this? So give me a second here. Let's do it this way. This is just going to be real-time Survivorman figuring things out. Okay, first thing I want to think about is wind. So as I come along and I look around here, I'm on a knoll. I'm at the top of a knoll. There's no wind here at all right now. That's a wonderful thing. That doesn't mean it's not going to get windy throughout the night. It could get horrifyingly windy up here. So I'm looking over at this tree here and that kind of stumpy area. I'm looking for wind blocks, a tree there. Okay, so I need to know, where are my wind blocks? That's always a primo important factor for me. Where are my wind blocks? And will they be effective if the wind changes its direction and comes around from the other side? I also did a show more recently, just a couple of years ago, called Fighting to Survive, where I took a MMA fighter out to survive with me. And the same situation, but it happened in reverse there. I had great wind during the day that were keeping the mosquitoes down, and then it stopped, and it was an onslaught. Check this out. I don't plan really on making a shelter. There's such a nice breeze coming through here. I'm hoping this breeze will keep the mosquitoes down. The breeze can die, and then I'm in trouble, but a shelter's not going to change anything when it comes to mosquitoes. Oh, my ears and my head feels a little, it's hot from fly bites. My fear is happening. The wind has completely died down, and I was hoping if I stayed out here that I'd have that advantage over a breeze to keep the mosquitoes down. Breeze is gone completely. So we'll see how this goes. Without a breeze, if the mosquitoes do happen to like this temperature, and I can hear them buzzing right now, then it could be a long, bad night of mosquitoes. And this is the wrong time of year to go out and do any kind of survival excursion, if you will. This is the bug season. Now, granted, it's Northern Ontario and the black flies are gone, but the deer flies, the horse flies, the no-see-ums, and the mosquitoes, they're all still here. And they're here thick. And what happens is the deer flies take it to you all day long, along with the horse flies. Then they punch the clock, and the mosquitoes and the no-see-ums move in. This was going to be bad. I knew it was going to be bad, and it was awful. I mean, I don't mean this in a condescending way or a patronizing way, but it was really bad even for me. Okay, so wind, important, check. So let's say this is the spot. This is it where I have to stay. Well, something I do see that matters a lot to me is plenty and plenty of firewood. Oh, big problem. Didn't bring matches. So if I don't have matches, it doesn't matter about this firewood. If I do have matches, then actually all of this fallen down debris here, some of which is from previous cut. I can see cut marks and stuff. That's great. I can see that I have enough within this small little area here and just over there to keep a fire going all night long. Something else that you need to do is get your mind familiar with how big of a pile of firewood you need to last through a night. There's only one way to do that. Spend the night. Spend the night with an outside fire that you have to keep going, warm enough, like big enough, to keep you very warm. Try that all night. And it quickly teaches you just how much fuel supply, how much firewood you need. And I'm very familiar with that, so I know this will do. You know what? And it's not going to do me amazingly, but it will get me through the night. Actually, there's one big dead tree there. You can see that bowed tree. That's a nice big chunk of firewood for me if I can get it down. I don't have a saw, but let's say I do have a saw. You know, so you got to, again, look at what you have with you. So we've talked about wind, so vital. In a scenario like this, I don't have much protection other than some tree blocks. Okay, I will make use of those if I have to. Fire, if I have matches, okay, I'm seeing that I have plenty of firewood here. So that means that if I'm stuck here, do I need to go anywhere else? Well, in fact, if the wind is coming from behind you, then yeah, I can go down this hill here because I'm on top of a berm. You know, it goes down from me in every direction except one. And so I could go down there for a windbreak. If the wind's coming from there, I can go down there for a windbreak. So that might make a difference. If the wind was blowing now, I know that generally speaking, the wind comes from this direction. So that means that location throughout the night, based on where I'm familiar with the wind coming, is going to be dropping down this side here somewhere. Now, what does that mean? Well, for one, it means I can't go too far because it gets really steep. But that steepness is still a great wind block. So before it gets too steep, I'm looking for an area that is flat enough for me to be able to actually sit or lie if that's the case. Oh boy, let's go there. Materials. The next thing is materials to keep me warm. Let's pretend I don't have any matches at all and I'm stuck up here. Oh, I've snapped my ankle bad and I can't go all that far. Or maybe I can walk a bit, but I've just decided, well, based on the firewood and all the different things around here, this is the spot. But I am going to need to keep myself warm through the night. That is key. Even if you're in the Amazon jungle or the Kalahari Desert, you will be amazed at how cold you get at night. This cannot be understated, and people don't seem to grasp that the chill that drops down, which starts about 11:30 p.m., it's amazing. It's stunning. I've taken groups out and just sat and waited for it, and all of a sudden you can hear everybody murmuring because you know the chill just came in, and the temperature that just dropped 5 degrees in a matter of a minute. And you can hear everybody getting that little chill on. So what do we do about that? Again, location, location, location. In a situation like this, I don't have much other than getting out of the wind. If I have matches, it's going to be a big ass fire. That's the end of that story. But if I don't, then I need insulation. I still need insulation from the ground anyway. And the only insulation I see is all of this leaf litter here on the floor. Let's play this one out without having matches. That's a big thing. The difference between being able to get a fire going or not is massive in a survival situation. So no ability to get a fire going? Okay, I need insulation then. I need protection from the wind and insulation. My insulation is going to be all of this leaf litter here. And I'm going to get down and get myself warm by scooping it up, something I can also do later on in the night. I happen to know, for example, here's another thing to consider. It's going to be a full moon tonight. So I know I actually will have eyesight in this forest for quite some time. Now, if I was in the Amazon jungle and it was a no moon night, it's pitch black within moments. Once that sun sets, you can't see anything. You can't see the hand in front of your face. Maybe the same thing here, so I know it's a full moon, so I'm going to have some time to gather up this litter. So in this situation here, I'm going to nail this down and we're going to go up to another location. In this scenario here, though, I've determined that if I was stuck here and I didn't want to walk too far, get behind some tree blocks, duck down a bit on the other side of the berm if the wind does pick up and does come in. And in fact, I should plan for that. I should plan for the wind picking up. Use all of this leaf litter as insulation on the ground. If I have matches, well, now It's going to be all of the same scenario, getting down over there, getting out of the wind, using the leaf litter to protect me from the cold of the ground, plus gathering all of this firewood, bringing it over and getting a big ass fire going. I mean a big fire. I'm a very big fan of a big fire. You just need to know how to do that safely. Mind you, if your life depends upon it, that's a different scenario, isn't it? As the old saying goes, I'd rather be tried by 12 than carried by 6. With that in mind, let's go check out another area. Let's go. Beautiful. And no, I am not at all taking into consideration food. Not a chance. This is about survival. It's about going home. I'm looking at the places where if I was stuck, I would need to make my shelter. What makes sense depending on what I see in front of me. Do I need to walk another 100 yards or stay put? Food doesn't come into the equation whatsoever. That's long-term survival. Different story. High or low? That is the question. I'm climbing up high right now. Should that be where I keep my shelter? Should I get really low, out of the wind? Somewhere in the middle. If you go up super high, you run the risk, sorry that I'm out of breath, but I am going up a big hill here. You run the risk of being blown by the wind, something awful. If you go down low, the cold temperatures drop down there. They settle in the valleys. Try staying the night down by a creek sometime. You will freeze, plus it'll be damp, but the cold drops down all the time. Top of the hill, bottom of the hill. Top of the hill if you want to be seen. Bottom of the hill if you're trying to walk out and follow a creek out. But where you're going to actually sleep, probably somewhere in the middle, makes the most sense to me. That's where I found the best place to be. Unless I want to be on the top of the hill because it's breezier and that keeps the mosquitoes down. Again, it might not be about getting cold. It might be about the bugs. Down by the water's edge, not too often. Not too often unless I just, need to be, unless it's long term and it's all about water at that point. So that's my take on where to be in terms of a hill. When I'm thinking about firewood for where I'm at, I would think nothing of building a fire right in that log right there. Just getting a big fire going right there, putting my branches, everything, and just getting that as a big, massive heaping pile of red coals. And there's other firewood around here I can bring over to it. So that I like, in a survival situation, this is a very cool thing to do. But it's a steep area. There's nowhere flat to lie. I'd probably lie on the other side of that. Maybe it's very big, so I could be behind it if the wind was blowing in either direction. I want you to think more about if you have to spend the night, not if you have to build a shelter. You see, there's a big difference in that. And there are lots of really cool videos online of people building these elaborate, beautiful shelters in the woods. You know what? They're gorgeous. I've done it myself before. It's fun. But that's thriving in the wilderness. That's enjoying the wilderness and being out there and living in it. It's not survival. So I'm coming from the situation where you're in a situation you don't want to be in. And what do you do about it? This actually isn't bad. I saw this spot here and I thought, well, I'll come up and I'll talk to you about how this looks like it might be a cool location. We have firewood over there, plenty of it. All these rocks here, so if I could get a fire going, I could have them up against the rocks. But I was going to say, and this is why you really have to look. I was going to say, but look at this ground. You're not sleeping on that. You can barely walk on it. And there's nowhere to actually lie flat or even in a curled up ball to get through the night. So this is definitely a place where you're just gonna sit for the night, which is not easy. And then I come around the corner though, and I found this little spot right here. See that right there? Now, it's not super comfortable, I can tell that, but you know what? See that tree right there? Actually, you know what? As I think about it, this is not a bad spot for shelter location talk. I'm looking all around. The big disadvantage here is going to be the wind. I'm up very high, okay? So is it going to be windy? If it does, that could be really bad. How much time do I have? Don't have a lot of time right now. If I don't have matches, I'm not going to stay here. I'm going to try and get somewhere else more protected. So I don't have matches, can't get a fire going. And never mind about rubbing sticks together and all that. If I do have matches, I just might stay here. And the reason for that is this little cubby hole here, it's not all that protected from the wind, but it is, with all this rock area here, I could build a rock. I'd rather sit down there, but that's also a good place to put the fire so the heat kind of reflects up at me. On the other hand, I'd be fine. No, I'd probably end up putting it here. That's what I'd do. It's up against this rock and let the heat reflect back, and it will reflect down to me as well. The other advantage in a spot like this is why I'm saying now, I'm changing my mind now that I've come over here. It's actually not that bad if I was stuck here for the night, because you see all of this greenery, all of these small evergreens, all around me within a very short distance. That's money right there, because that is insulation. And they're all small enough that without a machete or an axe or a saw, I could break all of those branches off with my hands. Would I be killing them or hurting them? Yes, of course I would be. This is about survival. It's about surviving the night and making it to the next morning alive. So I would take all of those, create my bed in this spot right here, take all of those and try to create a bit more of a wind block in case the wind does pick up, have my get this firewood behind me there and have my fire going here. Interesting way to look at this location. I first saw it as just being so rugged, and yet I look a little closer and it actually has a lot of the raw materials I need just for spending the night, assuming I have a way to get a fire going. If I don't, as I said, I don't think I would stay right here. I think I'd still look to go down into the trees and use the leaves as insulation. Where's the best place to hunker down for the night? And maybe that's the real way to put the question. Not where's the best place to build a shelter or gather anything. Where's the best place to hunker down for the night? Because that is what is important. So you can do that yourself. The next time you're out snowshoeing or hiking, just do the Survivorman nerd moment and just go, hey, if I really had to, where would I make that shelter? And now you want to bring into it all of the variables to help you make that decision. And I will tell you that it is often very surprising the answers you come up with are not what you think at first. Come on, guys, let's go. Let's go. Up. Let's go. Here's a little bit of what I meant about the cold dropping down on you the lower you go. There's a funnel down here. All right, it just swoops down, 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 down. I'm on a berm. See, it goes down on that side, down on this side, and then there's that funnel. Well, the cold definitely just flows down. So if I make my shelter 100 yards down there, it's going to be colder than if I'm right here. But if it gets real windy up here, then it's going to be colder up here. So it's about finding that perfect spot. By the way, you could consider this a godsend. They don't do this everywhere, but in certain states they have this project where they pile up all the loose debris and then they come back up and burn it just to help stop forest fires from spreading. Yeah, here's the problem with that. These piles have been here for many, many, many years. The plastic that was covering them is mostly rotted, and now it's just a whole bunch of big tinder piles. So for every time you see one of these piles in the woods that they're diligently burning off in the wintertime to protect from forest fires for the next spring, there's another few hundred that they forgot all about. And now they're just nice tinder bundles in the middle of the forest. That said, the disadvantage of something like this, and you think it's going to be great, is it also could quite possibly be very rotted. So you think you're finding good firewood, something to really learn too. When you span the distance with your eyes, you say, oh, good firewood zone. Is it really? Is it? Check that wood. Is it, as we'd say in Canada, is it punky? Is it rotted? Squishy, soft? That's not going to burn very well. That's great if you've already got a big, massive fire going, but it's terrible for trying to get a fire going. So in a situation like this, you know what I would probably do here? Now that I've walked up the hill a bit, I'm stuck for the night, but I've got matches. Just snapped my ankle really bad. I know my wife knows where I am. I'm gonna set that on fire. and I just want to get a big blazing fire going at the top of this hill. And I've got all this other firewood around to add to it and hope for rescue. Come on, pup. Not a bad little shelter pole right there, ready to go, made up for you. It's not a very good location, but sometimes I do look for these when I want to make an A-frame shelter because it's already set and ready to go. I just have to cover it over and crawl in underneath, and I've got my shelter. So look for those sometimes. They can be really helpful and save you a lot of work if you can find something like that. Quick location talk at the top of a hill here, okay? All around me goes down, except for one spot up there, but I'm at the top of a hill. For getting noticed, for being spotted, for yelling out, for whistling, for listening and hearing other people calling for you, it's a great location. But to spend the night here, it's a terrible location. And that's the thing is, we expect the lost victim to be in a hill like this waiting to be rescued. They're hiding from the weather. They're hiding from the cold, from the rain, from the wind. And you can't hide way up in a spot like this where you're exposed. So where are they? Well, they're way tucked down somewhere, down in the deep, dark hollows, just trying to stay warm. That's the tricky part, because they also can't hear you as well down there, and you can't hear them if they yell from down there. So this location is great for signaling. Not so good to spend the night, though. But if I really had to, that's kind of interesting. I'm gonna tuck right in there. If you can see in there, sort of tuck in there. That's a miserable night of just sitting up. Sleeping, sitting up against a tree sucks in the biggest way. Trust me on that one. Beautiful tree, though. Just gorgeous. Nice big mother tree. This mother tree is talking to every tree around it. This isn't old growth or anything, it's secondary forest. It's all been logged at one point, but all these trees communicating under the ground to each other. Pretty amazing stuff. Look at all those leaves. Those leaves will make you an amazing pile of insulation that you can spend the night in. There's quite a down angle, which means it makes it much easier for me to swoop and sweep all of these leaves down into a big pile. If you're doing it flat, it's a lot of work, but if you're doing it from the top of a hill down, it's much, much easier. But we'll get to that when I show you how to make that shelter. Here's a word on shelter locations. You see I'm walking in a field here. I might call this the elk field because the elk do like to come up here. It's a really beautiful spot, actually. When the sun is shining, you just come up here and sit. It's amazing. But is it a good spot for a shelter location? Not really, not in the middle. And the reason why I'm bringing it up is primarily because of the movie Revenant. There's an awful lot I could cut up about that movie when it comes to the survival techniques. In fact, pretty much all of them were off and wrong and misleading and sensationalized and silly. With the exception of the bear attack. That was the most realistic bear attack I've ever witnessed in my life on film. However, the survival stuff was bogus. And one of the big things was, you remember that scene right in the middle? Or somewhere, there's a scene where it's blowing and it's blizzardy and he's out and he's in the middle. He's right in the middle of a big expanse like this. The wind is blowing and there's forest all around him. Yeah, no survival instructor worth his or her salt is going to build a shelter in the middle of an open field during a windy winter night. It's never going to happen unless you're insane. So, might have looked beautiful. Hey Leo, great movie. Thought you were amazing in it. Loved the bear attack, but should have had me consult for you on that survival stuff. Because, yeah, no. Okay, here's another spot to talk about shelter location. I'm right beside a creek. So let's talk about that, because that would seem like the place to be, would it not? So I know this creek very well. I drink from it. It's absolutely delicious water. So do I want to build a shelter right by this creek? There's a lot of what would seem like advantages to that. Well, what are the advantages to having your shelter location close to water like this? Well, one very simple one is the sound of the water can be very calming. You don't hear the rest of the forest. You don't hear all the crackling and things going on, because at night in the forest, just always remember this. A mouse sounds like a squirrel sounds like a raccoon sounds like a bear, okay? And a bear sounds like Bigfoot. In any event, all those crackles and sounds that you hear at night, they scare you, make you nervous. If you're beside a creek, you can hear the water, it drowns out everything else. So that's an advantage. Of course, there's the water itself. Depends on, do you need that water? Do you need to guzzle? Do you need to drink a lot? Another thing is, searchers often will look down through river and creek passages for lost victims. That's a place we often go with search and rescue to look for people. In fact, it's one of our starting spots is, well, let's search the creek, because so many people, when they're lost, tend to follow the creeks to try to get out. They don't make it out before night. Now they're stuck by the creek. So that's another advantage. And what are the disadvantages? You're just the dampness that's coming off, especially a creek where the water is frothing, that mist, all right, that will reach you 50 feet away, 100 feet away. It'll reach you 100 yards away. It's dampness, and that dampness will chill you to the bone. I would go up there, probably a couple of 100 yards, so that I'm up above the layer of cold that is going to drop down on this creek at night. And it will drop down. I've felt it many, many times. You go up there and you go, oh my gosh, it's like 8 degrees warmer up there. So it's a thick forest. Don't have to worry too much about wind here. But definitely you want to go up and away from a creek, but you want to have access to the creek. So it might be pretty, it may be comforting, but you will regret it at 2 a.m. when you are chilled to the bone. You know, as I walk along, you've seen some of these ribbons here. Those are actually my ribbons. I've marked this trail for my own self and for friends that I might send out here to enjoy a trail. All right, so if you find yourself stuck out and you are close to an established trail, there's another thing to think about is that that's where they're going to be looking for you. So not going too far from that trail may be very important for your rescue. It might be not the nicest place to be for the night, but there will be some psychological comfort to being so close to an established trail, indeed the trail that you got stuck on. If you my thought is that if you come to a location that would be amazing as a shelter location, and it's sort of midday-ish or something like that, and it would just be perfect, and this is long-term, you're stuck, but you definitely, for whatever reason, have to build a shelter. Again, maybe you can tell by my tone, I'm not that big on that. I'm not that big on building shelters because, again, for survival, you want to get out of there. You don't want to make it your home. If you're making it your home, that's something else altogether. So, but if you have to, then you need to start working on that sucker. I hate to say it, but by noon. Don't forget, you probably have been up since 4:30 a.m. anyway. You may have been hiking since 5:30 a.m. when it was light enough. So it's not that bad to stop at noon and start working on a shelter when you know that shelter has to be substantial. That's something else to think about here is what is the time of day, and compare that or put that up against the kind of shelter that you believe you're going to have to make for the night. Shelter location, I like it when everything you need for that shelter is right where you're going to make it. It's terrible when you have to carry stuff, even if it's just a couple of 100 yards, that's a long, long ways in a survival situation. There's a massive difference between sitting on the ground all night beside a tree, wearing winter clothing, a big, huge jacket, and sitting outside all night beside a tree in a sweatshirt and a pair of jeans. So what gear do you have with you? That will also determine where you want to stay. If you have a tent with you, then you want to stay where you can be easily seen because it's all about rescue. You know, you got lost, but you do have a tent, so where can I be spotted? And, you know, wind be damned, rain be damned. kind of everything began because, well, you got a tent, so there's your shelter. You're good to go. So your location is going to be all about being spotted, being rescued. So this is just a lucky find is what this is. Right, so I'm going to curl in here. Okay. Now if I look up, it's possible that rain might come pouring down through there, but I'm guessing, at least if it's a drizzle, it's not going to be that bad. And I can tuck right in here and get out of the rain. Now I have sat here often when I've come here with the dogs. Look at that. Right, and oh, so cool. It actually even just feels warmer just being right here. I have sat here many times before, and almost every single time when I go home that night, there's a tick on me. So I'll probably have to check again tonight. Something else to think about. Like I said, you want to worry about nests, ant nests, ticks, jiggers, hornets' nests, wasp nests, snakes. All of that you want to take into consideration for your shelter location as well. Come on this side of it, right? And you think it's just a solid tree from this side. So you could walk right by this thinking, well, that's just a big tree on an incline. That's not a good place to survive at all. Can't do anything about shelter there. And then you walk around and you discover that, in fact, it's an amazing little tree tent ready to go. So yes, if you'd look at something like this and say, well, I'd build my shelter right here, this time, yes, you'd be right. That is a great place to build a shelter. How you pick your location, again, not necessarily to build a shelter, but as a spot to hunker down, the place where you're going to spend the night. And again, remember that vast difference between if you have matches or if you don't. You see, if you have matches, a lighter, a way of getting a fire going, and you know you can get a fire going, then as far as I'm concerned, hell, I'll sit out in the rain with a roaring fire going. I'm good with that. You know, hopefully I have a jacket or something, right? But because it's all about that fire. When you don't have a way of getting a fire going, everything changes drastically in a survival situation. And now you're talking about so much needed protection from the elements, the rain, the wind, the cold, the movement of the cold. If you really want to see what it's like, I go out and sit by a tree all night long. Just go sit by a tree all night long without doing anything to protect yourself. That will teach you an awful lot about how to get through the night. Aha! So sweet. The frost has made them nice and sweet. Otherwise, they're kind of bland. By the way, if you want to see us using some madrone berries in a local foraging perspective and bringing them into the kitchen, watch my new series, Wild Harvest, Les Stroud's Wild Harvest, on American Public Television, on PBS stations everywhere throughout the United States. It's just got amazing coverage there. It's in all throughout Asia, National Geographic, and it's about to launch in Canada on the Cottage Life channel. 13 episodes out now, and 13 new episodes launching very, very soon. Woohoo! Beautiful little rainbow. Dinner.
This perhaps is the most incredible kitchen scenario I've ever had.
When you start getting involved in local foraging and bringing the ingredients home and playing with them in the kitchen, can you create a dish where the domestic ingredients don't overshadow the wild ingredients? Hey there! Oh! Go on! Now the job's getting fun.
This dish is a showcase of how great these foraged ingredients come together.
It's the best when it's its own flavor. When you're making something with a wild edible, you're nailing it and not losing the wild flavor.
Sometimes it is about the ingredients.
And don't forget, if you've got kids, my brand new children's book is out, Wild Outside, Around the World with Survivorman. And there's some outdoor activities in that book for the kids. So look for that. You can get it on my website, lesstroud.ca. So thrilled and honored to have released my first children's book, Wild Outside. Thank you, Anik Press out of Toronto, Canada, for publishing this with me. It's doing phenomenally well. The first run sold out right away. So, I think the second run sold out. It's just such a fun book to work on. I wrote it directly to your kids, 7 to 12-year-olds. There's stories, there's photographs, there's tips and things they can do outside, things that they can learn. It's, I think, a very fun book, and it just got nominated for a Yellow Cedar Award. What's so special about that? It's a Kids' Choice Award. Next up for me is to go out and do this in the snow. Come on, Rogue. And and show you how everything changes there in terms of where your location is going to be. All right, guys, I'm going to walk these pups back home. Unless I run into another really cool shelter location, I will see you in a bit. I want to also watch the Fighting to Survive set of videos that I did, that I mentioned during this film that you just watched. Go here, so you might be on videos or home, but go here to playlists, click on playlists, scroll across this bar here, okay, until you come to the playlist that says Survivorman Fighting to Survive. There's also Bigfoot and my podcast, Survivorman and Son, Beyond Survival. Click on this one, and we'll just pause that, and there you are. There's the videos that are associated with that series, Fighting to Survive. As well, now I'm just going to jump back. If you wanted to find another episode that works perfect with the one you just watched, I did a series called Survivorman Secrets, and I did one that specialized on shelters. To find that very easily, you could click on search, put in secrets, and hit return. And up comes Survivorman Secrets, Season 1, Episode 2, Shelter, right there. There's other ones, Water as well. And there you go. You've got a whole other film that is focused on shelters. So, enjoy.